Well, hello. Have you ever been in a conversation with someone and before you know it, they're actually screaming at the top of their lungs and you're kind of shocked by this explosive response? Or have you ever had a boss who, at the moment they felt their authority was threatened, they start name calling and cursing at people? Have you ever had this experience? My name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, and I am the founder of the Real Love Revolution and the upcoming Boundary Bootcamp. In today's episode, we're going to be handling people who have explosive boundaries. How can you respond instead of react? Right? Someone who just torches the village. How can you not get burned in that experience? Many of you have been writing into me from the YouTube channel and from the podcast, and this is one of the things that you asked me to do a video on, so I'm doing a video on it. So let's start with a lot of the work that I do, you guys, and you know this. People who have explosive personalities, you're drawing these people into your life, people who are trampling all over your boundaries in an explosive way, but you're attracting them for a reason. So let's talk about your blueprint, because that's the first experience that we need to get clear about, is what is your own boundary blueprint around rage and explosive anger? What is your experience? Because if you don't understand your own history, because we all respond differently when someone is an explosive personality. So if you grew up in a home where someone was an explosive personality, like one of your parents, then this will shake you to the core in a different way. And I grew up in a home where nobody was allowed to be angry. So I also am very avoidant of people who have explosive ways of expressing themselves when they're angry or when they feel threatened. So that's basically what we're going to be covering. So there's a few questions that I'm going to ask you. How was it? Was there anyone in the home that you grew up in who had this explosive way of being in the world and this explosive either reaction to your boundaries, like if you didn't do exactly what they wanted you to do, or to get their own way, they use this like very hot-headed, explosive, volatile way of being in relationship to you. Because when you can identify where you have felt this way before, and again, we're always going to look at the boundary blueprint, and we're always going to ask the 3 Qs, which is, let's say you're dealing with a boss who's explosive in this way. You're going to ask the 3 Qs. Who does this person remind me of? Where have I felt like this before? And why is this dynamic familiar to me? And don't worry, there's going to be a downloadable cheat sheet. So all the Qs that you need to ask yourself will be right in that cheat sheet. But I just want you to think about it as we're moving through this episode today, because I really want you to get the most out of it that you possibly can. Because the person who wrote in to ask me to do this was actually referring to a boss that she has who is super unhealthy in many ways. But the way that he dominates the people in the company is by freaking out in the meetings. And instead of having a conversation, so she described this whole interaction that they had where had something to do with sales. And the boss was saying, we should cut them off, stop doing any work on on them right now, like no more work for them. And, the people who were actually interacting with that client were like, well, we have a few things that we can do before we torch the village, basically. And she was describing that the moment that the boss felt like his authority was in some way being threatened, he just freaked out, started cursing, and was like, you guys are all just sitting on your asses, a lazy bunch of SOBs, blah, blah, blah. You just don't want to do the work to figure this out. You don't care if we lose this. Everyone get the hell out of here. This meeting is over. And she was like, okay. Not only is that so stressful, but of course it's not productive. And so I wrote back to her saying, hey, also look at your own, ask the 3 Qs. And of course, her father is a very similar personality to her boss. So she started to understand more deeply that it was so threatening to her. His behavior was so, because it was so familiar. And when we have these unresolved wounds from childhood, as an adult, really, you could be your adult self and yet you're still reacting like the 5-year-old or the 10-year-old, of course, which is not going to be like you're not going to come up with your best problem solving material when you're feeling stuck in that young age. So we're handling your boundary blueprint around explosive boundary drawers and rageful people. So that'll be one thing. And next, I want to talk to you about our natural human flight or fight response. So as human beings, right, this was a very primal and instinctive way that we would respond as humans, and we still do to a degree, to feeling threatened. Now, back in the day when there actually might have been a saber-toothed tiger about to bite your head off, this was a very adaptive response, which means that our bodies start to prepare. When we feel threatened, our bodies start to prepare to protect ourselves. So depending on what your experience is, you may feel very threatened by this explosive boundary drawer in your life, and you're going to feel some physical symptoms going on. So what happens when we get into fight or flight? Well, our pupils dilate, our heart starts to beat faster. A lot of the blood in our body will go to our limbs so that if we need to run, we'll be able to. If we need to fight, we'll be able to. We get very focused. We might start to sweat a little bit. We get lots of hormones and different chemicals are secreted within the body. And this is all, you know what it feels like when adrenaline happens in your body? Have you ever been driving and suddenly the person in front of you just jams on their brake and you quickly, without thinking, right? We don't think, we just respond, and you jam on your brake. Hopefully you don't hit the person in front of you and maybe you save yourself from being in an accident. But now think about, how do you feel physically after you've had that experience? I usually feel exhausted, like almost like my arms and my legs feel like rubber or like a wet noodle, kind of like I've had that experience where I've actually pulled over on the side of the road, way off the highway, way on the side of the road. But to just put my hazards on and just breathe, because I could almost feel lightheaded, like all of those chemicals surging through my body made me feel like maybe I was going to faint, So anyway, I'm talking about the fight or flight response to you because I want you to be aware that if you're feeling really threatened with these explosive boundary drawing people in your life, you're having a response. Now, what is your body doing? Your body is really, there's only two things that we're going to do in that moment when we're really feeling threatened, is that we're going to fight or flee. That's it. That's what your whole body, all those changes, the central nervous system gets involved, right? Your brain has already sent it a whole bunch of messages about what we need to be doing, right? That your adrenaline glands start producing these hormones and pulsating it through your body, cortisol and adrenaline, and there's a whole bunch of other things that start going through the system. Your breathing becomes more rapid. Now think about whether it's the woman who wrote to me about her boss, she was having a very physical reaction, because another thing with someone who's explosive is that you're always walking on eggshells. You don't know what boundary either they're going to explosively cross of yours, or that you somehow stepped on and you don't even know why they're freaking out, but they are. And so this creates a certain amount of hypervigilance, right? We're in this elevated state of awareness of danger. And so I want you to be aware of this, because the truth is that there's some really great things that you can do to calm yourself down, because you have to be able to make the distinction between this is unpleasant, but it's not the same as someone holding a 22 to my head. And your body may not know the difference. So I'm going to actually share a really great download with you from one of my best friends who is a brilliant energy. She's an energy medicine practitioner. Anyway, so she's got something. It's called Sedating Triple Warmer. So I'm going to share a link in our download to that for you because I use it with my clients all the time. And if you haven't been turned on to her work, her name is Lara from The Lara Touch. That is the name of her website. And she just has tons of, she's like me, puts out a ton of free content in the world. And it's really, really great. And I think it will really help you. So I will give you a link to that because being in this heightened state of fight or flight a lot is really bad for your health. It's really bad for your heart. All that cortisol can make you hold on to fat in a way that you probably don't want to, can create this crazy pot belly from being stressed all the time. I read that. I was like, reason number 1 to not be in fight or flight all the time. Who the hell wants a pot belly? I do not. Anyway, moving on. So we got that. Hold on. What else did I want to tell you guys? So the 2 things. So now we have step 1 and 2, which is being aware of your blueprint and being aware of your own fight or flight response. Moving on to step 3. So let's say now you're in the situation with the boss. You have to stay calm because this is the reframe on it for you. When that person starts to freak out, I want you to imagine someone who is in the midst or in the basically their rage, their fear has them in a headlock. Now, it's unfortunate if it's your boss, but that's really what's happening. It's like a child having a temper tantrum. So if you've ever had a child, if you have any kids, if you have any nieces or nephews, you know that when a kid is having a temper tantrum, nothing will there's no way that you can reason with them when they've already like slipped down that rabbit hole of losing their minds. You could be like, stop or you're going to be in trouble. They do not care. They cannot stop. So no, first of all, likening whoever this person is sort of to a kid because they're in almost like a semi-conscious state. Like when they're almost blacking out, it's kind of being in like a weird zombie mode or something, right? You can't do that as well. Because if 2 people are doing that, nothing good is going to happen. So you've got to stay calm. And I'm not saying give this person a pass. And listen, there's one set of rules if it's your boss. And listen, I don't think you should put up with shit from anybody. I really don't. Like out of control, disrespectful shit. No, I don't think you should. But I also don't think, we're not all in a position to be able to like quit our jobs or tell our bosses to F off. So in your personal life, though, I really don't think you should put up with any shit. So if you have a partner who's very explosive, you don't deserve someone losing their mind and calling you names or being disrespectful or blaming you. You really don't deserve that. But in that moment, while the person has already flipped that switch to rage, you're most likely the real thing we want to do is contain that situation. So you have to stay calm. Breathe, right? You can't match their energy because, we're moving on to step 4. So stay calm is step 3. And step 4 is don't add fuel to the explosive fire because you don't want to torch the village of your relationship or your job or whatever it is. So just like the kid who's in a tantrum, we would maybe give them a timeout so their feelings can settle. Now, if it's your boss, you clearly can't give them a timeout, but you can find a way to get yourself out of that situation, right? By taking a deep breath. So the way that you can effectively sort of interrupt that explosion, especially if it's in your personal life, is you can raise your voice a little bit and say the person's name. So let's say it's a coworker who's doing this or a friend even, right? You can say, Bob, take a time out. Bob, take a deep breath. Like sometimes saying the person's name can actually sort of somehow stop their descent into that rage or that madness. I love making a hand signal. This is me. I can't do it because I'm holding my mic because my other friggin' mic broke, but you get the point. You can do the timeout signal, right? You can do the timeout and say, let's stop because no progress is going to be made right here, right now. Right? Time out, people. If you give the timeout sign I mean, everyone knows what that means no matter what they're doing, right? You can also say, hey, I'm here to be a part of the solution, but not like this, right? To whatever it is that they're flipping out about. And you really have to also be aware if it is necessary for you to remove yourself from the situation to de-escalate. Don't ask their permission. Don't ask them what they think. You say, I'm taking a break and I'll be back. Turn around and walk out the door. They say don't walk away. Just keep walking. Just keep walking, because staying when someone is in that state and those other steps I just talked about are not actually doing anything, staying is not good for you, right? So you need to, this gives everyone kind of a break, so we can all maybe hit like the reset button on where it was, but you also are drawing your own boundary that says if you become too explosive, too hot, or abusive, I'm going to remove myself from the situation. And then you have to do it consistently. If it's a boss, maybe we'll come up with a different way of doing it. But I feel like for most of you who've written in, you're really dealing with this in your personal life. And then the fifth thing that I have for you, and this will be my last idea, is it's called the simple 10 count breathing exercise. So it's step 5. And really, you guys, it's so simple. It's just actually breathing and counting to 10. That's pretty much it. So let's say you walked away from that situation. Go somewhere where you can sit comfortably, have your back straight if you can. Close your eyes. If you have lavender oil, it would be great if you could bust that out and take a nice deep breath, because it's very calming. And all you're doing is silently in your mind counting your breaths very simply. When you breathe in, you're saying 1. When you breathe out, you're saying 1. When you breathe in again, you're saying 2. When you breathe out again, you're saying 2. Very simple. Your eyes are closed. 1, 1, 2, 2. Count all the way until you get up to 10. If you feel like that's enough, then you can stop. If you feel like you need another round, do another round. Why do we do this? Because when you're in fight or flight, it inspires this shallow breathing. When you feel anxious, you're breathing in a shallow way. Like I described when I almost hit that person's back of their car and I slammed on my brakes. That feeling that I described to you as being kind of faint, like lightheaded, like seeing spots a little bit. That's part of that is because my fight or flight kicked in and I was breathing in a very shallow manner. I pulled over so I could do this 10 count breathing exercise to get some oxygen back into the rest of my body before I moved forward. So I hope that you found this episode helpful. And if you did, please share it with the people in your life. Share it on social media. Get this out there. So maybe the explosive boundary people in the world could look at it too. And hey, maybe you're one of them. And if you are, I'm going to do a follow-up video on this of how you can self-soothe and not be that person who's exploding all the time, because I know that you feel like a victim too, that it's you who feels like you're in a headlock from your own rage. And I don't blame you. Nobody has taught you. And I promise you, if you're willing to learn, I'm willing to teach you. So I want to make an announcement. It's super exciting. I want you guys, you can click on your little cheat sheet below from today's episode. But I also, for the ladies, I want you to click below so that you can actually, I created this groovy quiz so you can see about your own boundary style. Are you one of the 6 unhealthy boundary styles? Like, which boundary style do you fall into? And then it's going to put you into my free group, and we're going to be doing the Boundary Bootcamp Challenge September 1st through the 7th. We're going to be together every day in the Facebook group. It's super exciting. Guys, I'm sorry. It's only for chicks. I'm sorry. It is. But I still am doing all these videos that are totally applicable to you guys too. So I can't wait for Boundary Bootcamp Challenge. It's going to be so exciting. I hope you guys did find this helpful and that you will use some of these tips and strategies to make your life better. I hope you have an amazing week. And as always, take care of you.